The sky above the town was the color of oil spilled into the ocean. You go outside, standing on an old road, decorated with wrinkles of broken asphalt. The wind is filled with caustic taste of smog. You hear the hum that never stops. You take your car out of town, driving through the rundown alleyways in between closed-up shops and desolate houses. You stop on an empty road overlooking it all. The hum is following your footsteps. You gaze back at the rows of single-story buildings illuminated with a sickly orange glow. The massive carcass of an oil refinery is towering above them, like a metallic dragon from an old legend. It too breathes fire. It too devours lives. You tried to run away from it once, but it dragged you back. The face flashes in your mind, both familiar and alien. It smiles at you before blending into the smog. You get back in the car. You still have things to do. You will get into the bowels of the dragon soon. You start the car and the headlights illuminate the sign, "Welcome to Norco," established in 1925. Norco is a sci-fi point-and-click adventure game released in 2022 by a Louisiana-based studio Geography of Robots. The game is set in a not-so-distant alternative future in the town of Norco. Kay Madera is returning to her hometown after her mother Catherine passed away from cancer to find out that the Shield, an international oil corporation, had a particular interest in her mother. There is also a question of an enigmatic ditchman, a figure that Kay saw on her journey once, who may be more than just a blurry memory. But before all that, before a weird dude that believes you're a descendant of Jesus Christ, yeah, there's that too, before a mall-occupying cult led by a narcissistic influencer who wants to find heaven on Mars, sorry, wrong picture, before drone priests, there is an almost nostalgic feeling of domesticity. Kay wakes up in her family's home, there is an old stuffed monkey judgingly looking at her, a browser tab is open on the laptop, people talking about some weird crypto scheme called Quackjob. A book on the shelf about disaster tourism with investors selling the desolate landscapes of this fictional New Orleans as a cheap thrill. And they're not the only ones. Outside of the dime's discount, you stumble into a film set. The director, with an ego the size of Louisiana, asks you to help add the local color to the script in the most asshole-ish way possible. You can choose the stupidest answers available and he will happily eat them up, but try anything remotely resembling normal speech and you'll be quickly disregarded. He's not really interested in the local culture, just the plastic idea of it. Like mass-produced voodoo dolls you'll see later, when the story will lead you to the shop in the French Quarters. This reminded me a lot of the line from Jacob Geller's essay on Final Fantasy VII Remake.
They'll agonize over how the plague tore through the community and how bitterly cold it was during the winter, and all this is true, of course. But I sometimes feel like these descriptions veer into misery porn, that we're all there to just gawk at how awful someone's life could be. It's the same with many fictional depictions of that high-low divide. It's a challenging thing to do, to accurately show all the struggles of poverty, all the ways people are denied their humanity, without making the whole thing a zoo, to stand outside and go, could you imagine being poor?
There are lots of other things around the house. The microwave filled with dead cockroaches, a sentient android Million fixing the bike in the backyard, once a fugitive, now basically a part of the family. Million tells Kay that before Catherine died, she was investigating something at Lake Pontchartrain for a mysterious client from the city. At the front yard, you find a small statue of Saint Mary that houses something, not entirely clear at the moment. If you click on the house itself, Kay will remember all the times it got flooded. The first flood, she's just a small child. The second time, Kay is 14 years old and had to stay in the hotel for 2 weeks. The third flood, Kay is much older, angry at her mother for not selling the house when she had the chance. She stayed in New Orleans with her friends. The fourth flood, Despite all the craziness that follows, the setup of the story is incredibly mundane. Your brother Blake, a troublemaker full of contradictions, edgelord but compassionate, sensitive and foolish, is nowhere to be seen. He spends a lot of his time in Sappy Paperbacks, a local bookstore that over the years tried to sell everything from vape cartridges to repairing smartphones and acupuncture therapy. In the end, only the paperbacks remain. One of the books in the shop is a proposal to secure a stretch of land, allowing locals to visit the gravesite, currently surrounded by the Shell oil refinery. It hasn't stopped growing since you left. Erica, the bookstore owner, points you in the direction of the Floodgate Tavern, a local drinking establishment. You step outside the store and... Norco is a town in St. Charles Parish, southern Louisiana, located 25 miles west of New Orleans. It is a home to, you guessed it, a Shell oil refinery. Living near it is not a good time. Even on the flat satellite images, the refinery complex absolutely dominates the town. And in addition to the obvious air pollution, it had not one but two devastating explosions. An interesting bit of trivia is that the town was originally called Celis. It was a sugarcane plantation worked on by slaves. In the game, the old plantation house still stands, the remnant of another oppressive system, still not fully dealt with. You even visited once. It's now the home for the regional SHIELD headquarters. The allegory, straightforward as it may be, is still incredibly powerful. Norco, if you're curious, stands for New Orleans Refining Company. The name was changed back in 1926, after the town was bought by Shell. We cut to another timeline, playing through Catherine Medeiros' last days. She's in a clinic, recording her memories, something to leave behind for her children. One of the cornerstones of Norco's science fiction part is the thing called versioning, the creation of a virtual engram, the record of your own memories. Catherine's friend Doug did it too, although he deeply regrets it now. The real life in Norco is masterfully interwoven with the fictional technology, but I'd be hard-pressed to label Norco a cyberpunk game. Cyberpunk, though intimately connected to the ills of our current socioeconomic system, still carries a certain feeling of fantasy to it. Rich folks orbiting the Earth on the luxurious space stations, giant megastructures and cutthroat mercenaries with machine parts instead of eyes or limbs. Norco just doesn't have that vibe. It's mundane. The wealth inequality isn't portrayed through the lavish architecture, but through the text messages reminding you to pay the debt you have no way of settling. There is no path to legendary status here, no katana-wielding, pizza-delivering ninja hackers. What exists, though, is much more prosaic, though not less deadly. If you look at the satellite images of the region around Norco, the first thing that you notice, well, outside of the Mississippi River and the enormous Lake Pontchartrain, is... According to the 2019 ProPublica report, there are more than 200 petrochemical and fossil fuel plants in the approximately 85-mile region along the Mississippi River, all emitting high levels of toxic chemicals. The situation there is so severe that this stretch of land got its own nickname.
Stretch of land in Louisiana that used to be known as plantation country.
Something is here killing us.
I feel like it's a death sentence, it's like we're being cremated.
Today, though, this part of the state is known as...
This house over here, the husband has cancer and the wife has cancer.
Cancer Alley.
Cancer Alley stretches from New Orleans to the area around Baton Rouge. A 2019 study by the University Network for Human Rights, conducted in an area around the Denka plant in La Place, just a 15-minute drive from Norco, showed that the cancer prevalence rate here is 75% higher than the US national rate. Unsurprisingly, the population of Cancer Alley is working class and predominantly people of color.
They are scared, I know they are.
What are they scared of?
They're scared of industry. Yeah, industry have money. We don't have any money.
Despite oil refineries and petrochemical plants dominating the landscape of Cancer Alley, new construction permits are still being issued. Since 2015, the state of Louisiana gave at least 7 permits for construction or expansion of petrochemical facilities, with more awaiting approval. The lax environmental state laws and the extremely faulty way the Department of Environmental Quality measures the impact of these plants are not helping the situation as well. According to the same ProPublica report, when issuing permits, the DEQ only considers the individual effects of each chemical, failing to account for the combined effects of those emissions. This is the Entergy site in St. Charles. Entergy is an electric company that generates and sells electricity. The DEQ approved their request for an additional power generating facility, and if you look at the levels of just one chemical, benzene, it doesn't look that bad. I mean, it's still not ideal, but at least it's not life-threatening. But look what happens if we add butadiene, another toxic chemical, to the mix. And here are the toxic levels if we consider all polluting chemicals Entergy emits, combined with all the other toxic materials from the neighboring plants. One of the new sites, expected to be opened in 2022, is located in St. James Parish. It is a massive industrial complex owned by Formosa, a Taiwanese-based petrochemical conglomerate. The name for this $9.4 billion kingdom of polymers and plastics is the Sunshine Project. The official website for the plant says that the industrial complex will produce polyethylene, polypropylene, polymer and ethylene glycol that are found in everyday products that help make our lives safer, healthier, cleaner and more efficient. If I had read it in a fictional novel, I'd have probably condemned the writer for less than elegant satire, but it seems that reality has its own views on the notion of dramatic irony. The ProPublica report I talked about ends with an interactive map. You can type the address within the Cancer Alley to find out how high the level of toxicity is there. Let's see what's going on in Norco. Well, together with Catherine we go down the memory lane, the pine trees growing out of concrete, the atmosphere of her father's house, the broken marriage, and the refinery explosion that took the life of Kay and Blake's father, Blue. The last two memories are a bit more eerie. There's the face of a Dutch man, the same smiling face Kay saw on her travels far away from Norco. Catherine says she's seen him around many years ago. There is also an image of a floating sphere Catherine encountered in the lake. An entity named Superduck started speaking to her through the radio, she says. It takes a particular interest in that object. What is Superduck? Well, it's... Okay, but actually, it is a version of Duck's consciousness, a hard fork that escaped and got a mind of its own. All of this is much more interesting for us, the audience. It doesn't really matter to Catherine or Dallas, her assignment partner. They are just trying to get by, pay off the medical bills, save up some cash. Superduck says that the sphere Catherine encountered is currently being held at the Promenade Mall, and Superduck wants her to bring it back. And now we have to talk about the cult of Garretts. Yeah, you heard me right. Garretts are a semi-religious, semi-conspiracy theorist group that basically gave up on Earth and are now building an ark to reunite with other true believers that live on the Martian moons. All the Garretts worship someone named Kenneth John, in their eyes a god's messenger, but in reality a somewhat famous internet celebrity. You can find a homeless woman that they chased out of the mall under the overpass. Garretts are, for all intents and purposes, the game's own version of far-right extremist groups of today, from being recruited through the app, similarly to how modern far-right sprawled on 4chan, Reddit, Twitter and Facebook, to the fact that most of the Garretts are estranged from their families or any other community, to the narcissistic cult leader at the top, although real-life alt-rights have more than one mouthpiece. While looking for the way inside the mall, we meet the Ditch Man, or Pow Pow, as people call him. His speech is strange. He talks about Maria Magdalene, says he saw Kay walking through California like it was Galilee. Later we find out that Pow Pow believes that the Madera family are the descendants of Jesus Christ, the last remaining bloodline. Pow Pow too wants to escape to heaven. This whole religious plot is an important part of the story, but for the sake of this essay, we're not going to focus on it too deeply. When talking about Norco or the impact of the Louisiana petrochemical and fossil fuel industries, it is impossible to avoid the concept of slow violence. The term coined by Nixon in his book Slow Violence and the Environmentalism of the Poor as
a violence that occurs gradually and out of sight, a violence of delayed destruction that is dispersed across time and space, an attritional violence that is typically not viewed as violence at all. Violence is customarily conceived as an event or action that is immediate in time, explosive and spectacular in space, and as erupting into instant sensational visibility. We need, I believe, to engage a different kind of violence, a violence that is neither spectacular nor instantaneous, but rather incremental and accretive, its calamitous repercussions playing out across a range of temporal scales.
To put it simply, fast violence is personal, something that attracts attention to itself, but slow violence is systemic, less flashy, and thus much more difficult to pin down or hold accountable the people responsible for it. What's more, slow violence affects more than one generation, and the further the cause of it is removed from our present day, the harder it is to investigate it, and becomes much easier to ignore. Who knows why there are so many miscarriages in the area? Sometimes people just get cancer. Well, the wildfires are unpredictable and hard to control.
We know that Louisiana has a really high rate of adverse birth outcomes, but what we found was that pollution is a really big factor. Pollution is causing health problems above and beyond cancer.
My son actually went to school about 2 miles from the industry, and the air quality caused him not to be able to participate in recess because he would have so many asthma attacks. He would describe it as pinching your nose and trying to breathe through a coffee straw.
In the present-day timeline, Kay makes her way to the Floodgate Tavern to meet with Keith and Brett LeBlanc, a local PI who is something else. LeBlanc tells Kay that after her mother died, he saw SHIELD security taking a box out of the house, and that Laura St. Clair, local CEO and the daughter of the tech billionaire Thomas St. Clair, had a particular interest in Catherine. No lead on Blake, but LeBlanc points us in the direction of the SHIELD HQ and sends us to talk to Doc, the old family friend that lives in the Dimes, the neighborhood that has been bought out by the company. Doc is the last remaining dweller of the district. He already lost his son to the pipeline explosion. He too is dying of cancer. Back in Catherine's timeline, she and Dallas make their way through the mall to witness a sermon that takes a violent turn. She finds the sphere and brings it back to Superdoc. That's the last time we'll see her before the end. If you, as Kay, go to the local mausoleum, you will find that someone stole Catherine's remains, leaving behind an ominous promise that Kay will be reunited with her family soon. To get inside the SHIELD headquarters, Kay recruits another colorful character, a local oil pirate, Lucky, who says that SHIELD is building a giant brain, an AI to find oil in space. Another group looking for salvation in the stars. You get into the HQ in time for a masquerade ball and come face to face with Laura. She gives you the box willingly. She has no more strength to fight. Last year, 2023, was filled with, well, too many horrific events if you ask me, but among those were two incidents that tie directly to the topic at hand. The first one being East Palestine. If you haven't heard of it before, then no. East Palestine is not located in the Middle East, where the Israeli forces are currently shelling civilians with rockets on an industrial scale. No. East Palestine is a village in Ohio with the population of a little less than 5,000 people. Last year its name was heard by far more than that. On February 3rd, 2023, a Norfolk Southern train carrying vinyl chloride and other toxic materials went off the rails, erupted in flames, releasing a massive amount of hazardous substances into the surrounding air and water. The US Center for Disease Control lists the following symptoms of exposure to vinyl chloride: dizziness, ataxia, inebriation, fatigue, numbness and tingling, visual disturbances, coma, and death. The fire lasted for 2 days until February 5th, and on February 8th, after the controlled burn aimed to prevent an explosion, the evacuation order was lifted. As it is often the case, the real problems didn't stop there.
This is that film. Just so everybody can see here, I'm gonna step on it. It's already in the soil, so you gotta get it, like, kinda, look. We're not making this shit up, man.
Oh yeah, tingling lips, that was my big thing. Tingling lips, burning eyes, really bad.
After returning home, the East Palestine residents started experiencing various symptoms, from nausea and tingling to rashes, headaches, and troubles with breathing. As of February 3rd, 2024, the cleanup is still ongoing. Naturally, the Norfolk Southern was, at least on the surface, very concerned with the consequences of their own actions. In an open letter published 6 months after the incident, the CEO Ellen Shaw wrote, "How can we help? It is a question my Norfolk Southern colleagues and I have been asking for the past 6 months. How can we help East Palestine? How can we help Darlington Township? How can we help the communities impacted by February's train derailment? The next time you see a Norfolk Southern railroader, I hope you'll say hello. I hope you'll let us know what else we can do to help. We count on your honest feedback, because we know supporting the community means listening to the people who call it home. We will continue to listen, and we will continue our work to help this community recover and thrive." The company has also donated $104 million to rebuild the community. In his end-of-the-year report, Ellen Shaw said, "The fourth quarter marked the end of a challenging, yet transformational year for Norfolk Southern. I am proud that the team responded with unwavering dedication while continuing to advance our strategy that strikes the necessary balance between service, productivity, and growth. We invested in our people, enhanced our service performance, and made the safe railroad even safer." 104 million seems like a pretty substantial sum. But here is another number: 2,340,000. That's the amount that, according to the report by Public Citizen, Norfolk Southern spent on lobbying in 2023. A 30% increase when compared to the prior year, trying to influence the discussions of railroad safety and staffing requirements. Closing his annual report, Shaw said, "Norfolk Southern enters 2024 with positive momentum and the focus on driving further productivity gains and operational discipline through aggressive cost management. We see growth on the horizon, and we are confident in our ability to deliver industry competitive margins over time." At the same time, the company laid off 7% of its workforce. What happened in August of 2023 had nothing to do with toxic substances. Instead, this story is concerned with a far more ordinary chemical element: water. Lahaina is a town located on the island of Maui in Hawaii. On August 8th, it almost burned down to the ground when the torn power line started a decimating fire. As of February 14th, 2024 data, the fire took the lives of 101 people. It has been the deadliest recorded fire in Hawaiian history. The tragic Lahaina fire brought at the forefront another devastating disaster of a slower kind. For decades, the Hawaiians have been fighting with luxury real estate developers and investors, and even before that with plantation owners, for their right to have access to water. In the piece published by The Guardian detailing the long history of fighting for water rights, Naomi, Klein and Capuala Sprott write,
"This historical and modern plantation economy has taken a tremendous toll on water in particular, draining indigenous ecologies of their natural moisture. Lahaina, once known as the Venice of the Pacific, has been transformed into a parched desert, which is part of what's made it so vulnerable to fire. Plantation skimming wells dried up Mokuhinia, an at least 15-acre freshwater fish pond that nourished Moku'ula, an island within the pond that was the seat of the Hawaiian kingdom. In the early 1900s, the plantation filled Mokuhinia with dirt, and eventually a baseball field and parking lot appeared over the sacred site. Even long after most of those original plantations closed, the infrastructure and dynamics of water theft remained. Today, many native Hawaiian communities who have lived in Maui Komohana since time immemorial remain cut off from water for their basic needs, including drinking, laundry, and traditional crop irrigation. For instance, Lauren Palakiko, whose family has resided in Ka'ula'ula for centuries and has priority water rights under the law, last year testified at a state water commission hearing that she had to bathe her baby in a bucket because not enough water reached her home. That's because the streams that once flowed through their valley are diverted for luxury subdivisions, which often occupy plantation-controlled lands.
Every time stories like this happen, people might call them natural disasters or tragic accidents. The CEOs and political representatives will say that their thoughts and prayers are with the victims and they will do everything to mitigate the effects. And they're actually nice guys. But to quote Noam Chomsky,
you can't be a nice guy in certain positions because the institution is not nice.
Of course, there is nothing natural about these cases. Nothing accidental. Toxic petrochemical plants do not keep appearing out of nowhere along the Mississippi River or any other part of the world. The East Palestine derailment is not the first and not even the 10th in the chain of devastating railroad accidents following industry deregulation in the US, precision-scheduled railroading, and companies prioritizing profit margins and stock buybacks over safety. The Lahaina fire follows decades of fighting for access to water, and the Hurricane Dora, which many claim played a role in expediting the fire, is still the devastating symptom of climate change. Itself not a natural phenomenon, but the consequence of a system where the line going up is more important than people's livelihoods.
The fourth flood will follow a slow hurricane, and it will be a calamity. It will leave the entire region submerged as critical levees breach. There will be a massive blackout that lasts weeks. Much of the storage infrastructure will be damaged beyond repair. The embattled federal government will do nothing to assist. Small militant enclaves will form along the high ground of the Mississippi River. They will take to piracy and hijack commercial shipping vessels. Private mercenary forces will retaliate in kind. Slowly, industry will flee this hot zone. The old river control structure will collapse from neglect and sabotage. The Mississippi River will once again change its course. Norco, an old abandoned refinery town on a ghost of a river. Your house will be squatted and then razed.
Back at home, after what felt like forever, you open the box to find scraps of paper, little notes, and the Dimes discount coupon card. Surely not something worth risking your life over. You try using it at the store, no dice. Wait, something opens in the attic. A hidden room. You go to inspect it and then... Kay wakes up in the office of Bradley Blanc, who managed to save her life. The streets have changed. They're quiet, with Garrett's running around preparing for the launch. The trail of clues leads Kay to the lake, into the ghost bayous beyond. There you meet two unnamed researchers who are investigating Superdog and believe that it's dying. They ask you to take the radiation readings off of it. They are certain that's what ultimately killed Catherine. Her cancer was in remission. Until that last assignment. You take the boat further, deeper into the dark waters, until you find the launch site. People are gathering to witness the whole thing blow up in smoke. Not maliciously, mostly out of boredom. You take a step inside the space ark, you reunite with your family. Just maybe not in the way you hoped. In the book Slow Violence, Rob Nixon asks,
how can we convert into image and narrative the disasters that are slow-moving and long in the making, disasters that are anonymous and that star nobody, disasters that are attritional and of indifferent interest to the sensation-driven technologies of our image world? How can we turn the long emergencies of slow violence into stories dramatic enough to rouse public sentiment and warrant political intervention, these emergencies whose repercussions have given rise to some of the most critical challenges of our time?
And I think we have a pretty good answer. Norco is many things. It is a real town. It is a game set in the fictional version of the town. Norco is also us, our current world in microcosm. It would have been easy for Norco to fall into doomerism, throw in the towel and say, yeah man, we're all just gonna drown in the rising ocean waters. But the game takes a sharp turn from that towards the end. There are two ways to get the quote-unquote good ending, where Kay reunites with her brother and manages to leave the Ark before it goes up in flames. So there's this dude named Bruce. He's one of the Garretts. Remember Garretts? And he's the one controlling the Ark's liftoff. You need to get rid of him so there will be no one to actually launch the spaceship. How do you do it? Well, remember the monkey Kay had in her bedroom at the beginning? If you decide to recruit it, Kay loses it when driving to the SHIELD HQ. You can find the monkey much later when exploring the Ghost Bayous. Bruce too had a similar monkey once, one of the few happy reminders of his childhood. You can find out about it when playing as Catherine, if you decide to talk to his father. He'd also ask you to pass a message from him, although at the moment you have no way of recording it, so you'll have to make an effort to remember it and take a detour that, at that moment, doesn't seem to offer anything useful to you, other than just doing a nice thing for these two deeply sad characters. So, you're looking at the launch site and Bruce is sitting there, and you have two options. Give him the monkey, or play the recording of his father's voice from Catherine's phone. Both paths, while clearly signposted by the game, are optional and easy to miss. But if you do pay attention, Bruce leaves, giving you just enough time later on to escape the Ark. On the surface this looks weird, but I mean, you've just played through the game with drone priests and super ducks and Moloch-occupying cults, so it's all kind of on brand. But if you look past the weirdness, then here's what the game has to say about doomerism and despair and capitalism. Norco's answer is community, coming together as a collective, in the face of the common dreads, remembering that we have a lot more to gain through mutual connections than through selfish pursuits. And it's true about the world of the game as much as it is about ours. Sharon Levine, the woman you saw in the Human Rights Watch report I used in this video, started a Rise St. James to fight fossil fuel companies. Robert Taylor founded the Concerned Citizens of St. John to advocate for the health and safety of the local residents. In 2002, the Concerned Citizens of Norco, alongside the Louisiana Bucket Brigade, won a court battle with Shell to get fair buyouts and relocation from the contaminated zone. Aina Momona, a Hawaiian organization that advocates for the rights of the native population, works to restore the ecosystem and cultural practices and provide support for the victims of the Maui fire. As of the moment of writing, the Sunshine Project still hasn't been built, with the district court revoking its permit due to pressure from local residents and the environmental activists. The spokesperson for Formosa says that the company still intends to build the plant in Louisiana. If you're curious or want to support these organizations, I will list in the description those I was able to find. I'm sure there are more. I hope there are more. At the end of the game, Kay reunites with her family, and it is strongly hinted that she leaves the town, just as we will move on from our metaphorical Norco. And the looming question asked by the game is, what we'll leave behind? In both senses of these words. What we will leave behind for others that will take our place, and what we'll leave behind never to return to. Will we still cling to the toxic system of greed and myopic personal interests that slowly poisons our air, our water, our minds? Or will there be time when the soil around Norco becomes clean again, and the only memory of its painful past will be the museum that tells the tale of a broken system run by people blinded by greed? Will there be time where I can say that the sky above the town was the color of oil spilled into the ocean, and no one will know what it means?